Yo, that music every single time gets
A
me
banger.
banging. So, yo, what up? What up? What up? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Think Big podcast. But before we even get started, I just realized we can't even get started yet because I didn't promote this yet on my social media. Like I've
Oh,
been busy all day. I did not promote that this episode's live, and we got to get the family on here. We got to get the community. So if you're watching this right now, if you're watching this live, what I want you to do before we even get jumping into today's topic, because it's going to be a good one with Daryl and Alejandro, Sam, and myself breaking down how to effectively communicate to the different personality types. I want you to go ahead
oh.
and get your battle buddy in here, get your friends in here, share this out before we get started, because today's going to be fun. Now, let me just do this. I'm going to go ahead and snap a photo. Boom. Some people are afraid to use social media. All right, cool. Snap that photo. Getting this shared on IG. All right, and I think we're good to go. So, today's episode, we're going to be talking about effectively communicating to different personality types. The reason we were thinking about doing this was because when we went over effectively how to go out and get your first deal, how to find buyers, how to actually underwrite the deal, we realized we were missing a major fact that a lot of people need, a skill, if you will, which is communication. Now, the skill of communication, I really want to highlight this, is a skill that's much larger than even just real estate alone. Communication is a skill that will bleed into any business venture that you have. It'll also lead into your personal life. It's one of those things that I wish I had learned earlier. In fact, you guys are going to think this is a little funny. Earlier, when I was driving back from an appointment, I was talking to my mom and I called up my mom and I said, Mom, was I a talkative kid? She was like, Dude, you didn't say anything. You were silent. Like I did not talk. I had to develop the ability to communicate. So the things Daryl and Alejandro and Sam are going to talk about today is really when we talk about how to communicate, we have to recognize there are personality types that people fall into. There are going to be these individuals that are the outspoken life of the room. And there's going to be the person that's pretty quiet. Then there's going to be the emotional person. There's going to be the analytical person. And how do we change our approach based off of who we're communicating with? Because ultimately, if your communication skills are lacking, your business will suffer. So I want to pass the mic over to my man Daryl because Daryl's really going to be diving deep and dissecting this today.
Yeah, so it's super important, right, to not only understand who you're talking to, but how they communicate as well, right? Like we all look at things in our own view, right? We only look at most of the times we only look at things how we see it, right? But if you take yourself out of almost out of your body and look at how this person you're talking to perceives information and receives information, you'll understand them. They'll like you a lot more. You'll be able to communicate a lot better with them. And when we're talking about sales, right, that's the secret, right? You want somebody to like you, right? And if you're communicating with somebody in a way that they just don't like, right, there's no way that they could like you, right? Now, there are different ways. I'm curious because there's different personality types, right? I personally follow the DISC personality type. Um, assessment, and I recommend, like, even with my students, that's one of the first things we do is I have them take a DISC personality test. So not only I know what their personality type is, but they know what theirs is, right? Because it's easier to communicate with people once you understand your personality type first, right? And not even with sales, right? Like, this is important for everyday life, everyday communication with friends, family, relationships. Marlon, you look like you're about to jump out of your seat. What you
I got a question actually, because
What's up?
and like I don't mean to cut you off. I get excited when we start talking about certain things because
Yeah.
one, I'm hanging out with my homies. You know, what are each of your personality types? Because I think I know your guys' personality types, but I'm curious to kind of how you guys view and identify yourselves and your own personality types.
Oh,
I mean, I'm really interested to, I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna spin that on you, Mister Mindset. Uh, I want to hear what you think we are, and then I would like for us to be able to say we agree with that. Here's something we agree with. Here's something we disagree with, because it's always interesting to hear someone else's perspective. Yours, especially, because you're one of the best people reader that I've ever met.
Ooh,
So, let us know what we are. Watch, he's
No
about to call me a
pressure, no
dumbass, right? He's
pressure.
like, Sam, your personality is idiot. That's what it is.
So, it's pretty interesting, right? When I look at it, I think inside this room, I'm going to look at, well, I'm going to start with Sam, because right now your color behind your walls, kind of matching a little bit about that personality. Because Sam, I would say Sam's a driver, but he's not full driver. He's not full driver because there's a lot of empathy with him as well. He cares about people, right? But he's also, I would say he's a DI, but I can't go there, because I would actually say he's closer to a DA, right? Driver and analytical, because my man Sam does care about the numbers. That would be my personal take on Sam, because his attitude is very much I should say his characteristic is get things done, and at the same time making data-driven decisions, right? There's a very strong data-driven decisions where there's a reason behind why he's doing what he's doing. And although emotions do come into play, he will still, I think you will value the data sometimes over just how we're feeling, and you will learn how to deliver it tactfully to account for a person's feelings, but not be so overwhelmed by the feelings that you make poor decisions.
Wow, I love that. And here's what I'll say. I think you're probably about spot on. And the reason why this is super important, I think we should have prefaced this by saying this, guys. Your personality traits in entrepreneurship will change. They will. What you start off with will morph, right? Because you go through seasons in life. And to your point, I've always been a high driver. Always been a high driver. When I first got into this industry, a lot of it was based on this idea, this emotional idea of if talent wins, right? So a lot of me was like, okay, the people that I look up to, they're winning because they're drivers, but they're talented. And then guess what? In order to grow my business, in order to grow myself as a human being, I had to learn something that I maybe wasn't super driven with before. And that was understanding data at a high level. So I had to add that on as a skill set and as a new personality trait to get to where I'm at now. So for me personally, dude, you're freaking spot on. It's being a high driver, right? But I had to now get to a point where I've taken a lot of my emotion out of the process, right? Supplemented my emotion with data-driven business decisions. But to your point, I always try to, because I always want to remain as grounded as possible. That's why I love you guys, because you guys keep me grounded, is understanding that other people may not be data-driven. Other people may be emotion-driven. So try to retain that that empathy that may not come as naturally to me as it comes to you, because empathy truly is this innate talent that Marlon, you have. It's something that I try to keep from you. So, dude, I would say you're spot on.
All right, so far we're 1 for 1. I'm gonna go up to Daryl, because I think Daryl might be a little bit easier, because Alejandro, that man's a mystery. So, my man Daryl, I would say,
man, it's gonna be easy, bro.
No, you're not easy, bro. You're not easy. What it is you're straightforward. You show people what they get, right? And so this is why people can actually connect with you so quickly and so easily. It's because you have that driver personality, which I think is more pronounced. It's still red. However, a part of it is that influencer, right? It's that DI, right? Because you're not necessarily the person that like, hey, I'm just going to play it safe. In fact, I got to be honest, I don't really think I've ever seen you play it safe. You've played it smart, but not safe. I appreciate that about you. So your personality type lets you go out. It lets you turn on the aggression. However, you're very open to how the other people feel. Like you're very open to when you go out and you are driving and you're creating, you're paying attention to how it's changing the landscape. So even in a conversation, you're very aware of how the other person is feeling, but you're not so held on making them feel good that you won't say what needs to be said, which puts you in a perfect position to really command conversations, which puts you in a great position to be a closer, to be someone that can coach other people, because you're not the person that's like, hey, I'll tell you what you want to hear. Like, no, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear. Right. And I'll feel for you. So when you're going through it, I'm not going to abandon you. I'm not going to be that person that delivers news and then walks away. No, I'm going to deliver the news, and then I'll be there to give you a shoulder to cry on. So that's what I see with Daryl.
He's really good at that with the ladies too. He gives them all a shoulder to cry on.
It's a fact. Like, yo, hide your girls. If you bring your girl around Daryl, just like make sure you keep her tight. You know what I mean? Like,
it's really crazy.
We're gonna meet Daryl. But I can't. When he opens up and he starts smiling, you can't be looking at the pearly whites.
Nah,
You can't be look at him.
Chill. But it's crazy though. Like what Sam was saying is 1,000% true, right? Because reality, we all have a little bit of each personality type in us already, right? And I was always like straight red my whole life until honestly up until last year, where Kesson brought it out of me and he made me realize that I was a douchebag my whole life. Like he really called me he called me a douchebag, and that was a pivotal point of my life. And I decided to be more, have more empathy and care more about other people's feelings and what they say. So I really worked on that. So you can work on having these different personality traits if you lack in one.
Agreed. And then my man Alejandro Alvarez, yo, this is AKA Bruce Wayne, right? So my man Bruce Wayne down here, his personality type is, it's interesting actually. I think there's a mix of things. I think what you get from him in the workforce is you're actually able to get, I would say, another driver type with the influencer, with like that person that his emotional intelligence is off the charts. Like he truly does understand how to be a go-giver. And I would almost say it would be more influencer. It almost feel like it started off as more influential, more of like that person that gets the emotional intelligence. And he developed a strong driver through discipline. And the driver came secondary, although it's what's seen on the outside. Like that's my personal take on Alejandro, is that he has this ability he can build rapid rapport very quickly. And you get that sense of like, man, he is sincere. What he says is what he means. He's really listening. He's really attentive. He really does care. And then like it'll surprise you when he like snaps into like, all right, work mode. Like now it's time to switch and move on to the next topic. Like, wait, whoa. I thought we were like having this whole moment. Like, yeah, we had the moment. The moment's done now, and now it's time to get back to work. So that's what I see with Alejandro.
You're pretty much spot on, bro. I mean, I like to get, perspective from the outside, but I would say there's definitely a mix of stuff. There's definitely a mix of things in there because I can switch when it's like work mode. I'm the most serious person because there's a lot of people that rely on me executing certain things so their family can eat. So it's like all the BS is gone. Like don't even approach me with any BS. Like I'm on a different like mindset. Like it's just completely different. Obviously, when I'm building rapport and I truly care about people, it's a completely different personality. It's like I'm just sitting here to be a listener and try to find a solution to whatever issues you have.
And I freaking love that about you, man. And so it's important that we understand what our personality types are, because this does allow us to go out and effectively play to our strengths or recognize what it is we should be focused on during the practice hours, during the time when no one sees. Like when Sam disappears for 3 days at a time, I know Sam is building. I know he's working on the things that he's going to get praised for in the future in public, because he's practicing in silence right now. He is, as we say, chopping wood and carrying water without the hand claps. So, all right, I'm gonna throw it back,
bro. We didn't do you, bro.
Bro, come on.
You try to just sneak out of there, dog. I don't know. I think
who wants to? Yeah. Daryl, do you want to?
I think I can get Marlon, bro. Marlon is a people person. Like Marlon feeds off of other people's energies, which I love about Marlon. Like that shit is so dope about Marlon. So I would say Marlon, your I think your I for sure, and then you have a driver as well. You're definitely have D in you as well. Pause. You definitely are a driver as well. You're definitely a driver as well, because when it's time to lock in, bro, you're locked in, right? Like when it's when it's time to lock in and put the work in, like you're there, right? So I would say you're heavy I and with D, behind you.
I would say this. Outside of saying that Marlon has D in him,
I don't like how this is going out.
so I would say this, guys, about Marlon, right? Marlon, 100%, complete influencer, right? Tried and true. Why? Because it goes down to his background, it goes down to his origin story, it goes down to the fact that when he was young, he did this really good job of staying quiet and observing everyone around him. And someone who observes everyone around them tend to have this really high level of emotional intelligence. Marlon's superpower is his ability to instantly know exactly who he's dealing with. And because of that, it allows him to instantly know exactly what to give them to get whatever he needs or they need. You are tried and true influencer, but the best thing about having extremely high levels of emotional intelligence, we're all closers on the screen. And whether people realize it or not, a good friend of mine, Creighton, he keeps calling me on this because he knows I'm a good closer. He says, call it whatever it is, Sam. Closing is the ability to manipulate another human being to gain some form of intended effect. That's the reality of it, right? And whether you do so for a positive or negative light is totally up to you. The one thing that I have tremendous respect for Marlon for is that he will always be operating and using that influence for nothing but good. So one thing that I want to highlight, and that driver personality, here's one thing that I want to highlight with me and with you and with all of us on the screen. The sooner you know where you're at, the sooner you'll know where you're not at and what's holding you back. And most importantly, surrounding yourself with people who bring complementary skill sets to you, right, that you can take from. So we may have talked about this a little bit on the first episode when we did this, when we did Think Big. I was very intentional with bringing the four of us together because personality traits alone, we all have things that we all share in common, but we also have a lot of key differences. So Marlon, I think the one thing that we take from you, tried and true, number one, greatest thing about you, in my opinion, is your consistency. No one shows up the way that you do. Nobody. And I don't care what anyone says, consistency is the hardest thing on this planet. That is the hardest thing, bro. You show up at freaking 2 a.m. every single day for morning mindset. But the reality is that coupled with your empathy, coupled with, and I know for a fact, you're probably taking some more driver traits from some of us. And we're taking influencer traits from you. We're taking empathy traits from you. I know Daryl and I are at the very least, because Daryl, like you said, man, what Kesson told you were a douchebag, bro. I've been effectively a douchebag my whole life. And one thing that I've learned from Marlon is how to communicate with other human beings with empathy, right? And getting them to understand sometimes the harder lessons they need to hear. One thing about Marlon, guys, that you guys don't know, being an extremely high performance mindset coach, is that he has to help people sometimes see what are their flaws. And sometimes you have to throw them in their face a little bit, but how you do it, your delivery, that's where the magic happens. And no one does it in a way that Marlon does. I've effectively had Marlon sometimes like conveniently nicely tell me, Sam, this is what sucks about you, but said it in such a sweet way where I'm like, that was the sweetest thing I've ever heard in my life. So guys, to that effect, what I want to do is I want to move this kind of conversation over to let's start talking about some sellers. But this is why this is important. Understand what you have to work with, because the sooner that you can label yourself, your feelings, where you're at mentally, you'll be able to label sellers on the phone. And then as soon as you attach a label on them, guess what? That label is the formula, right? You know you're dealing with A, B, or C. Guess what? B, here's a list of things that you need to talk to them and how you need to speak to them with tonality, with pitch, with mirroring tactics, with so many different things. And some tactics work well for others and some don't. So let's get into it. Daryl, bro, I want to break down some seller personalities. Which one do you want to start with?
My favorite, the driver, the red one.
Let's
the
do it.
one that everybody's scared of.
The red seller. So this is my take, guys. This is my take with the red seller. It's the one that every newbie is afraid of. And it's probably, in my opinion, the easiest one to deal with.
Yeah.
And the reason why everyone's afraid of it is because it's a lot of energy really fast. It's a lot of energy, right? It's a lot of energy. It's super hard hitting. It's super fast. But to me, I want to hear you guys' takes on it. Daryl, I know you and I probably think a little bit similarly on this. To me, red personalities are usually a facade. They're usually a facade that go away quicker than they showed up. But let's hear Marlon. Actually, I want to hear it from you, man. With your take, describe reds, man. What do you think about them?
Yeah, so great. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. With the red sellers, typically people are afraid of these individuals because they come off as aggressive. Now, the reason the red seller does this is because they're trying to protect themselves. See, red sellers tend to have what we call like a soft underbelly, right? So they are big, they're rough, they're tough on the outside. However, on the inside, they know that they will give in. So because they are aware of this, sometimes they're not even aware of this. They want to naturally protect themselves with a hard exterior. So this comes across as aggression. This comes across as hurry up, get to the point, let's move on, because I need to feel in control, because this way I can't get hurt. So this is the type of person that will try and push you away to avoid getting hurt. But if you can break through their barrier, and if you can really establish a bit of dominance and get your footing in and show that, hey, look, I'm not afraid. I'm showing up here with a purpose. I have an intention. What will happen is that guard will come down. You will gain that person's respect, because with a red seller, it's about earning their respect. And once you have their respect, that's it. Like, this person will now, as aggressive and as quick as they were to dismiss you, they'll be aggressive and quick to work with you, to do the things that need to be done. So I like red sellers, but to your point, Sam, I'll be my personality type. Sam was on point with it. I'm influencer all day. Like, I like to talk people up, emotional intelligence. I was scared of this person when I first started talking on the phone. I was that seller, that person on the phone, terrified to talk to this personality type, because I didn't understand them, because it wasn't me.
Here's what I want to. I mean, this goes back, and there's a few things I want to iron out. Number one, last week we did the breakdown of my deal in Henderson, right? We had a tenant who was extremely combative, who threatened people, who this, that, and the other. And one thing that was really important for me to tell myself during the course of that transaction was that it's not personal. That it's not personal at all. With a red seller, even if they're a total D-bag to you, it's okay. It's not because they hate you. It's not because you're the worst thing on earth. It's not because of anything of that. It's nothing that you did. In fact, a lot of times it's just understanding that this is this person's default way of communicating. It is how they have been taught to communicate by society, by their families, by their loved ones, by the people they look up to. So just always know this, guys. When you're dealing with a red, it is not personal. It's not because you suck at cold calling. It's not because you don't sound like Daryl Ellison on the phone and you're not buttery smooth like him. It's just because that is how this human being communicates. And they don't even sometimes, most of the time, they don't even understand or know that the way they are communicating comes across this way. To them, they're just talking, right? So one thing that I want to highlight, this is something that, a lot of people shy away from. They have this in the back of their mind, but they don't want to vocalize it because they don't want to be, controversial. Is it true that some cultures and some societies produce more reds? Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely, guys. Of course, there's a bit of a meme in the world of being a closer that, like, good luck closing an Asian seller, whether they're Asian or they're Indian or they're from Pakistan, Middle East, or wherever. The reality is Asian culture as a whole tends to have a higher masculinity score, which means that people are a little bit more direct. They're a little bit more to the point. And very often it's not because they think they're any better than you. It's just the way that they were, conditioned to communicate. Whether we look at some other Western civilizations and Western cultures, they tend to be a little bit softer as a whole. Doesn't mean there's not people who are hard reds without a shadow of a doubt. But when you were thinking that, you were actually right, and it's okay. So, Daryl, how do you go about disarming a red? When you have a red seller, what do you do, man? How do you handle them?
Well, first, I want to talk about what you just said, Sam. When you were talking about how people, it's not your fault, right? These people aren't mad at you, right? Kobe Bryant said in an interview one time, he was talking about, like, get over yourself, right? Like, people aren't even thinking about you. These sellers have they're not worried about you. They're mad if they're mad, right? They're mad at something totally different, whatever they're going through in their life, right? They're going through a lot of stuff. They're reaching out to distressed people, going through distress situations, right? So don't take it personal. You're not supposed to have any emotions in this. You're supposed to, yes, care about people and be empathetic, right? But once you show your emotions, it's over, right? So how I talk to red sellers, I make it a game to turn that red person yellow, right? And it happens every time, right? It's my job to make them my best friend on this call, right? Because automatically they they're combative, right? They want to go back and forth, and I just have fun with it, right? Sam, you kind of hinted at it earlier. Tactics like mirroring and labeling red sellers and driver personality types will definitely bring that wall down and get them to like you a lot more, right? So if you don't know what I mean by mirroring, right? So somebody says something is if I don't know if they say anything, right? You repeat like the last 1 to 3 words that they're saying, right? So in that case, right, if you were listening to me, you would say the last words that they're saying or something like that, right? You repeat the last 3 words, and subconsciously these people start to like you more, right? And their guard gets down, like breaks down slowly and slowly and slowly. So that's my idea. When I talk to a red seller, it's my goal to turn them into a yellow seller and get them talkative, get them to become my friend. And honestly, it's like we were saying, it's a lot easier because you can almost say whatever you want to these people, right? Like, because they're either going to do one or two things. They're either going to blow up on you or they're going to become your friend, right? And have a good conversation with you. So
Let me ask you this, man. In one, you're 1,000% right. You can very effectively, like, there's some personality types where you probably shouldn't be cursing, but I mean, if there's one that you're going to get away with it, it's usually the red types. So if you want to let loose and let some f-bombs fly, they're the ones to do it with. Let me ask you this, man. With mirroring, right? Does mirroring have to only be specifically matching their last 3 words, or can you mirror someone in maybe the pace that they speak, or maybe their tone, or their pitch, maybe the intensity that they speak?
There's a bunch of different. You can even mirror in person, like body language, right? So if somebody is constantly has their arms crossed, right? I'm gonna stand there with my arms crossed as well because I'm mirroring them, right? And subconsciously, they don't even know it, but we're slowly becoming friends, right? So yes, the speed at which they talk, the pace, right? You even using the same words, right? So if I remember one time I was talking to a seller, we're negotiating, and all throughout the call, he keeps using the same phrase. He keeps saying warm and fuzzy, right? He's like, yeah, that wouldn't make me warm and fuzzy. That wouldn't make me warm and fuzzy. So as I'm closing him and pitching my solution, I'm going to ask him, does that make you warm and fuzzy? And we just kept talking about it, right? And I was like, look, when I buy this house, I'm gonna open up a new LLC and name it Warm and Fuzzy LLC, right? And just joking with him, just using the words that he was using. And this guy was like my best friend. Right, we didn't strike a deal, but because his numbers are crazy. But the rapport was there, right? He was my friend, and he was a red seller that was passed to me from somebody else because they couldn't handle the way he was handling their conversation. All right.
Alejandro, I'm really no. So sorry. Go for it, man. Finish that up.
No. I was interested. I was gonna call Alejandro in because this guy's so smooth. I want to hear how you would handle red sellers.
I'm laughing at all you how Daryl was explaining with the whole warm and fuzzy. I can only imagine that, bro. But red sellers are actually my favorite. They are my favorite. Like whenever someone on my acquisition team, this seller was being rude, I'm like, give me the number, give me the phone number, put me on the phone, coach. Let me get at him. So red sellers are to me, bro, they're the easiest because I'll be honest with you, man. After every conversation with the red seller, we always end up laughing towards the end of that phone call. It's so funny. Hey, man, you got your offer? Like, hey, man, well, hold on. what are we doing here? You want me to waste your time or do you want us to do a deal? What do you want? He's like, well, I want to do a deal. And then the whole conversation opens up from there. But something really quick that I learned with red sellers is that they just want to be in control, dog. That's all. Yeah. And if you give them the control, if you read the book, the 48 Laws of Power, the first one is never outshine the master. It's really that simple. Just never outshine the master. Make him feel superior. Make the red seller feel superior. I've told sellers, man, you must know a lot about real estate. How long you been doing this? Well, I've been doing this for, over 20 years. This is what I do. It's easy. I'm like, yeah, man, I see why you don't want people wasting your time. I'm like, yeah, man. And then they start to get all excited talking to you because you made them feel superior. When someone feels superior, they want to continue just lashing out, talking and talking and talking. And the more they talk, now they're comfortable with you talking about other solutions. So don't be that guy. Hey, man, why are you being rude? Hey, so let him be the superior and watch how funny that conversations will go towards the end. And so That's my take on that. Just never outshine the master. Let that red seller be the red seller. Don't try to challenge him. That's the easiest way you can make them your friends.
Yo, Alejandro, I just gotta follow up on that and like really drive this part home, because what Alejandro said, when you say never outshine the master, I want to put it in another way as well, because I agree with you 100%. And that's acknowledge them. Like, Alejandro, you do such a good job at acknowledging them, giving them props, agreeing with them, recognizing, like, yeah, man, you know a lot about real estate. Yeah, man, you're good at spotting these knuckleheads on the phone. You can tell when you're talking to people who aren't ever going to actually close a deal. And I respect that about you. That's why you got me on the phone. You know, I'm the manager around here. You know, that's the reason I'm on the phone, because you recognize you want to talk to a decision maker because you're a decision maker, right? Saying all these things to really just knock them up and put them on a pedestal. And here's the beautiful thing. You're not lying. You're just simply recognizing what they see in themselves. And that puts you in such good standing with them, because nobody wants to do a deal with a person that they feel like is attacking them. Right? If all things are considered equal and two people are coming at me with a deal, I want to do the deal with the guy that makes me feel good, with the girl that makes me feel good, with the person that's making me feel like a winner. So, yo,
Yep.
Alejandro, spot on. Daryl, Sam, I'm just gonna shut up and start taking notes, man. Y'all are killing it right now.
I wanna provide something a little bit different. And it's because I've got a unique work history before this, and we dealt with a lot of red sellers, not sellers, but red people in general, and people in a lot more distressed situations than just needing to sell their home. Very, very emotional people. And there is an element. One thing that I don't. This is me personally. There's other people out there, right? Some people say you need to match a red and be more red to them. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that sometimes that's just putting gasoline on the fire. But I do believe there is an ability to disarm. There's two, in my opinion, there's two ways to do this. We were always trained to do it in two different ways, and it was up to us to be dynamic and decide which way we did it. One, realize that you can visualize this. Red people, they're punching. They're not punching you. They're just punching the air. So what do? You step out of the way. Let them punch themselves out till they get tired. Just like what Marlon did. In your head, you are visually just encourage the hell out of them to be mad, and they will get it all out. And then guess what? There'll be watch your call recordings. You'll be able to the second tell where their tone changed. So get out of their way, let them tire themselves out. Because trust me, like any boxer, they're just shadow boxing. They're shadow boxing. Get out of their way, let them tire themselves out. They'll become malleable. There's another way to do it. And this is not for everyone, and it's with people who are maybe a little bit more skilled, right? I know Daryl can do this. I know Marlon can do this. I know Alejandro can do this. And it comes with the ability where you are going to match them, but you're going to match them in kind of a different way. It's not to offend them. It's not to piss them off. It is, in fact, a way to gain their respect, and that is by setting upfront expectations. There is a way to match red sellers, match red personalities, and be on the same footing as them, but not be in competition, not be in combat. So there's ways where you can kind of let them feel they have superiority. There's ways where you can kind of get out of the way, let them tire themselves out, and you come at them now where they're a little bit more yellow. There's ways you can turn them into your friends, or there are ways where you can let them be reds the entire time through, and then they will actually respect you for matching them. That's only if you do it right. And a lot of times that actually comes not with mirroring, but it comes with tonality. It comes with this idea of authority. Are you confident enough to hold your ground? Because red people respect other red people. It's just the way it is. Why? Because they're drivers. They feel like, man, we're special. We're alphas. We know what we're doing. We know what we want. And when we want it, it's going to happen. They respect other people who operate at the same wavelength. So with these people, you are going to have a tonal approach where you don't have to necessarily match them. You guys, with me and my voice, I've got somewhat of an intense kind of vocal quality. What I do is simply this. Hey, I know you're upset. I know a lot of people are coming at you doing a lot of bullshit. Okay, I'm not going to waste your time, and you're not going to waste mine. Let's set some upfront expectations. If this works, great. Then we're both going to be good. If it doesn't, totally fine. We'll call it a day. And then proceed to set those upfront expectations with them. And guess what? Very often, every time we do that, they go from 11 to like a 7. They just calm down. They're like, okay, because you've gotten through that wall. So, guys, decide: are you going to evade them? Are you going to encourage them? Are you going to maybe kind of force them to come down a little bit by combating them at the right time in the right way? That's a more of a higher skill set thing. We look at guys in the military. That's where people who have military backgrounds, they shine with this. People who have law enforcement backgrounds, they shine with this. Why? Because they understand how to combat red people and maintain their authority. And that's a critical thing. Daryl, you're like, bro, you're hyped as shit right now, dude. What's going on?
Bro, no, because I got a secret, bro. So you're talking about like your tone, right? How you can keep control with the tone, and and you know about this, right? You were just kind of talking. You have a natural one, that late night FM DJ voice, right? And a lot of people, that is one skill to use when you're dealing with red sellers, because it does exactly what Sam was just talking about, right? And a lot of people, they're like, well, my voice isn't the deepest, and how can I have a late night FM DJ voice if I'm
I don't sound like that.
blah blah blah, right? Like blah, 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 right? You can't do that, right? But I just learned the hack. If you put your chin down, put your head down when you talk, your voice gets a little deeper and you talk a little bit slower. You have that late night FM DJ voice, and telling you guys, try that. I tried it the other day when I was on a call, and I was just actually recording myself, and then I seen like the video that I was watching that talked about that, and I went back and watched the video, and the times where I did the DJ voice, my chin was down, and I was like, oh shit, that's crazy. So now I'm intentionally doing it.
So I wanna speak on that, dude. One, it's so true. It's so freaking true. You can do that by like just putting your chin down. Also, sitting back in your seat a little bit, and then putting your head back. And guess what? You're speaking more from your throat. So, Daryl, I know you and I are both fans of how the FBI teaches people to negotiate, because they're probably the best in the freaking world at it. Another way that they teach this is actually, if you don't feel like you have maybe the vocal quality, maybe you don't have the depth of voice, and maybe you don't want to sit there with your chin down because your neck hurts. So here's another way to do it, right? And especially for the ladies out there, how do you communicate with the red? How do you match them when you're dealing with like an older guy who's got a really, gruffy voice? And how are you matching his authority? You actually do it with the clarity in your pronunciation. How well are you ending each word? So one thing that really conveys a lot of authority and confidence for a lot of people is how clearly are they ending each word? Are you pronouncing each word like there's a period at the end? So when I'm talking like this, it sounds pretty normal, right? But if I start speaking like this and just ending each word with a period at it, I sound a little bit more certain. It's a super easy thing to do. If you don't maybe have a deeper voice, if you feel like you don't have that kind of conviction behind it, end each word with a period, and you'll be amazed at how differently it comes across. You're going to speak with a little bit more confidence, a little bit more certainty and conviction. But guys, I think we've hammered up the red sellers a little bit. Let's you guys want to move on to some of the other fancy colors?
Can I say one more thing about red sellers?
Bro, I would be
one more
be
thing.
ecstatic if you do.
Here's something that red sellers most of them hate. Whenever they ask you a question and you're like, well, dead. You're not closing that deal.
Dead.
Yo, so listen, build up your knowledge. Whatever you're gonna pitch that red seller, make sure you come with it 1,000% with all the knowledge. Get ready have all your rebuttals ready on attack mode. Whenever it's out, nah, why would I do that? What if you miss a payment? Well, that's a great thing. That's the best thing that can happen to you, Mr. Seller. Let me tell you why. You got to snap at it. But if you say like, that never really happened, and it's dead, you're not closing that deal. So what I mean to say there, guys, is make sure you learn everything you're doing, in sales, whatever your product is, know everything about that product inside out. Because whenever you're pitching that product or that solution, make sure you have a quick comeback with all rebuttals. Something I say, I've been in sales since I was 16. I'm 29 now. And I realize everything that makes me great is my confidence. and having all the rebuttals for all objection. Hey, what's your product about? Okay, give me all the objections someone will have, and now I'm going to go study the rebuttals. I'm going to study my product, and once I have that and my confident, it's over. Game over. So,
Yo, I gotta follow up one thing about what Alejandro is saying, because Alejandro, when you say you go out and you study the objections and you study your rebuttals, what does that mean? Is it that you're just sitting there reading it over and over, or are you? I'm going to lead it somewhere. Are you rehearsing it? Are you actually going through the action of speaking it aloud, practicing it, getting prepared, so that when it does come out, you're like the Karate Kid, right? Wax on, wax off. That it responds for you.
Yeah, I would say both. Something that our mentor Pace Morby said before is you don't own the knowledge until you start teaching it and you start practicing it. So if you just sit there and read and not actually practice it, the next day someone gives you an objection, you may not remember that rebuttal. You may be in trouble. So go rehearse it, go practice it. I've done that. Like the first time I pitched sub 2, like I think the day prior before I pitched it, I was learning. I was watching Pace Morby's videos, making sure I know all the objections. Where what if you miss a payment? The next day, I took that into action. Like I do not grab information and not take action with it because I will forget. That's normal for us humans. I mean, if you have great memory, great. But it's said about 80% of things that you learn, like you'll forget. You forget 80% of it. So out of 180%, 20% you remember because there's certain things that you will remember out of it. So same thing with a seller. When you're pitching your product, they will forget about 80% of what you said. So make sure you're really clear and you're dumbing down as much as possible.
Let me say this real quick, about one of the most important things about knowing your product, knowing your business, knowing your industry, right? One, it allows you to be an authority. It allows you to be confident. But two, it allows you to do this thing called you are killing objections before they even come up a lot of the times. You are forward pacing, right? You are moving and actually formulating the conversation. You're playing freaking 3D chess at this point, guys, where you're actually killing the objections, knowing that they would come up at this time in the conversation, but you just killed that objection 3 minutes before. And at the very end, this is how you know you've done a damn good job as a closer, is that when you ask like, hey, you have any questions? No, you pretty much did everything to answer, right? You pretty much did everything to answer it. That's an extremely high level sales thing, but that is an inevitable it's an inevitable product of knowing your product, of knowing your service. One thing I want to highlight is this. It's really important. It is really important to understand not just the objection, understand why that objection is important to this person and to that personality trait, right? Why are they coming up with this objection? If it's sub 2, it's the due on sale clause. Okay, we all know about that one. We all know how to conquer it. Here's the thing. With everything that I've gotten from this seller, all the data they've given me, all the evidence that they've given me, are they going to care about the due on sale clause because they are actually worried? Or let's just say this, the best one, this is my favorite one ever, because it just immediately we know the answer. When someone hits you with the objection of, can I see your website? Guys, Daryl, does that have anything to do with your website and your online presence?
Hell no.
Hell no. People ask you that question because you have failed to do one of two things: build trust or build credibility. You didn't sound confident. Like Alejandro said, you were saying some ums and you didn't sound like you knew what you were talking about. You sound like a cold caller and it's your first time cold calling. So when we deal with that, understand that objections are not just, oh, here's the problem, I have the answer. Understand the motivation of that problem, right? Because the website objection is an easy one. Here's the thing. They may have some other emotional objections, and you have to understand the human being that you're dealing with, understand why it's important to them. Why do they care about, if the objection has to do with the date of closing? Why does that matter? Did you ask enough questions and do enough discovery and find out this is a mother of 3 children, and then she has to account for where she's going to take her kids? Right? These objections have motivations behind them. So and I know we're throwing a lot at you guys. This has become a sales masterclass, and I'm sorry, but I don't think we can hold back on sauce sometimes.
Bro, I'm looking forward to when we start talking about, especially because we're talking about objections and we're talking about being able to answer those questions. And I can't wait for us to start talking about like the analytical sellers, because funny enough, I know like Alejandro, like he says like the red sellers are his favorite. I like the analytical ones, yo. Like the analytical ones are some of my favorite people because like they're so damn smart that like you get to like construct this beautiful maze for them to go and explore to and end up right where you need them to be. So before that, though, I know we've got 4 personality types to talk about. I know we just spent the last 30 minutes talking about one, and honestly, like we're like laughing over here in the side chat because we're like, man, we can literally talk about this because this topic is so much depth to it because we're talking about people, we're talking about personalities, we're talking about characteristics. I mean, the deeper you understand this, the more growth you're going to experience. You will experience exponential growth in your business, in your dealings with other people, in your hires. This is not just sales. This is going to be your personal relationships. This is your employees, your business partners, your friendships. This will just be how you begin to see the world. Now, with all that aside, there's a couple things that Sam, Alejandro, and Daryl kept saying to y'all over and over. And I want to make sure we don't gloss over it for the people because truth be told, it was the most valuable piece of it all. More than anything, like if someone's like, man, but Sam, Alejandro, I can't retain all of this information, man. Like I'm having a hard time just remembering what you guys even said 10 minutes ago. Remember the confidence. At the end of the day, you're building this knowledge base. You're going out and you're getting this experience to build the confidence. So I'm curious to find out, from Daryl, let me ask you this. How are you building the confidence? How is it that you get to that place where when you're like, how do I sound as smooth as a Daryl? Is it just knowing the principles? Because I've seen people that know the principles, but they don't deliver as well. So how do I build confidence?
Bro, I was just talking about this with somebody in my team just yesterday, actually. We were doing our role plays, right? Before our role plays start, I asked everybody on the team, what do you need to work on, right? What he wanted to work on was confidence. I said, I love that, but this isn't the place to build your confidence. I said, yeah, practice. Okay, practice. You get better during practice. You're going to build your confidence up that way. Yes, of course, we all know that. But the real way, the secret way that you build confidence, and this may get a little bit off topic, is you have to keep the promises that you make to yourself. That's the real way you build confidence, right? So if you tell yourself, I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow, or I'm going to make 50 calls a day or 100 calls a day, you better make those calls or you better go to the gym, right? And if you don't, like you picture it this way, right? Imagine you have a friend who every single day you guys make plans and every single day that person just flakes out on you, right? You guys supposed to go to the gym tomorrow. This person, you call them up, they're nowhere to be found, right? Sooner or later, you're not going to like this person. Sooner or later, you're going to stop inviting this person to come through. Sooner or later, you're just not going to be friends with them. Subconsciously, that's the same exact thing that you're doing with yourself. So every single day that you just lie to yourself and tell yourself you're going to do something and you just don't do it, your subconscious mind starts to dislike yourself even more, right? And there are ways to fix it. If you don't keep your word, right, there is a way to fix it. And it's going to sound a little weird, but I promise you, if you do it, it's going to work. I got this from Brad Lee. He says, go to the bathroom, look yourself in the mirror, and apologize to yourself. Yeah. Apologize to yourself for not keeping your word, and don't hold a grudge on yourself, which is even more important, right? Forgive yourself as well. And then make it your number one effort to do what you say you're going to do from there on out. So I don't know if you were expecting that answer, bro.
Bro, you're like, my name. It's bro. What's my name? Like, can they see what it is?
Mindset Marlon.
It's Mindset Marlon, and now you're talking about some mindset stuff. So I'm gonna contain it. I'm gonna write it down. Maybe we'll do this on another date. We'll talk about this because there are levels to building confidence. And what Daryl just said about keeping the promises you make to yourself, that is ultimately one of the best ways to build your confidence. And again, I'm going to pull back because if I start talking about this, I will go into an hour-long masterclass on how there are on keeping the confidence, keeping the promises you make to yourself, and what sort of promises will produce more value in your life versus other sorts of promises. Because two people could create promises and keep them, but one person might get exponentially better because of the type of promises they made. So let's bring it back, though, to talking to these sellers, because Daryl is spot on. When you have that confidence, just understand it's conveyed. See, a person is going to pick up on your sense of certainty, especially red sellers. Red sellers, especially because they are certain individuals. When they make up their mind and they decide we're going left, that's it. We're going left. Even if you're like, yo, bro, you're walking off a cliff. Doesn't matter. I made up my mind. I'm certain on where I'm going. So they respect certainty in another individual. Therefore, if you're struggling with talking to these folks, just recognize, build that confidence within. Build that confidence through, like what Alejandro said, the repetition, the study. Build it through, like what Sam and Daryl say, make the promises and keep them to yourself. So those are red sellers. Is there anything else that we need to go over with the red sellers?
Oh, we can go for days, bro. We can go for days on this.
We could do this a lot. I mean, honestly, I think it was kind of funny on our end to think that we could put 4 freaking closers together and then have them talk about personality types and think that we could do 4 in 1 hour. So I think this is going to lead to maybe having to do a follow-up episode, guys. What do you guys think?
Bro, we literally did one.
I love that.
Bro.
I think we should do a breakdown.
Yeah,
It's through one today.
It really is going to have to be like that. And one thing that I want to highlight, and it's so funny, this is a funny thing, guys. You guys have to know this, and I want you guys who are afraid of red sellers to understand this. Something about Marlon said. They are certain that they are right. Here's the thing, Marlon, let me ask you this. Can they be wrong and absolutely certain about it and it still be wrong?
Absolutely. We call those like the absolute wrongs, right? Because when they're
wrong, they're absolutely wrong, but it's okay. They're absolute in that fact, guys. Just take that with what it is. Have fun with it. Have a game with it, right? If you're like Daryl, I know Daryl has fun, like kind of screwing around with some sellers sometimes. He likes to play games. He likes to see unique and fun ways to disarm people. But I really want to highlight this, man. Really freaking want to highlight that talk about self-confidence, right? That talk about self-confidence is so freaking important. We look at the greatest, most influential people in the world. They're the people who, first and foremost, they keep promises to themselves. They say they're about something, they're going to be about what they say they're about. And when you can keep promises to yourselves, right, then you follow that up. Once you are, this is what everyone should do. If you feel like you're having self-confidence issues, stop making promises to people around you. Stop it. Don't do it anymore. What you should do is make a promise to yourself. Okay. Maybe that promise is going for a run every morning, getting on Morning Mindset Coffee with Marlon Johnson, right? Keep to that promise for 90 days. Keep that promise to yourself. Now you feel that, okay, I can prove it to myself. I have earned the right to start making promises to maybe my inner circle. Keep those promises. Before you start going and shotgunning promises to people who you don't even know, keep the promises to the most important people in the world. And it will be amazing at what that does to your confidence and your ability to convey conviction when you're speaking to these people. So just so you know, these sellers can be absolutely wrong. You can too. Once you get to a point where, Daryl, bro, are you at a point now where you've unlocked the ability to sound confident about things you know absolutely nothing about?
Bro, I think I was born with that still, honestly.
Daryl's Mr. Fake It Till You Make It.
Yeah, I think I was born with that, bro.
Well, it's an important thing, guys. Once you keep those promises to yourselves, then you expand that web. Then you start making promises to your loved ones. Keep those promises. Then you start making them to the people around you. Now, trust me, you will have tremendous levels of conviction that is unwavering, and it is undeniable on the phone. You will speak in a way where just you are certain. People are certain of you. They don't know why. They don't know how. There's a magnetism to how you speak. And people will just, man, they could have no clue what you're talking about. But they're like, damn, that guy knows his shit. Get to that point, and then you will be able to combat these sellers any day of the week.
We real quick, bro. We were all 4 of us were at Clever Summit. I think it was Cole Hatter who said this, right? And I will never forget this quote. He says, was it Cole Hatter who said this? What he said was important, right? It says the person you're talking to doesn't necessarily need to believe in what you're saying. They just need to believe that you believe in what you're saying, right? And if you don't believe in what you're saying, nobody will. So even if you're wrong, be confidently wrong. I suggest telling people you just don't know what the hell what the answer to that question, right? If somebody asks you a question, you don't know the answer to it, just tell them, right? I don't know, and they will be confident in you as well because you're telling them like, hey, I didn't lie to you at all. I'll tell you what I do know the answer to, but if I don't know the answer to it, I'll tell you this and I'll go write it down and I'll figure it out for you. But 1,000% what you said, Sam, you just gotta have confidence in yourself. You gotta believe in yourself, or nobody will believe in you.
Daryl, let me ask you. I'm super glad you said that. So with a newbie who may not be a absolute professional in every form of deal, it's okay for them to admit that they don't know something. It's not going to hurt their credibility. It's not going to hurt their authority. It's not going to kill the deal for them.
You would actually get respected more as a person, especially dealing with the red seller. You would get respected even more if you tell them, hey, that's a great question. I actually don't know the answer to that, but my partner does, or somebody that I know does. Let me write this down, and on our next call, I will have an answer for you. While we're at it, what other questions do you have? Maybe I can answer them. If not, I'll write those down too and get those answered for you for our next call.
You know what I love about that? I have to highlight this. You guys realize what he just did? He just mandated, required, justified a follow-up call to be scheduled.
Yep.
And he gave it credibility. He gave it credence. A follow-up call has to happen. You've already setting it up. So when you go up, it's not going to be useless. It's not going to be annoying. Hey, this is Sam again. I'm actually just following up. You remember that question that you asked that stumped me the other day? Guess what? I got the freaking answer.
Got the answer, bitch.
Got the answer. And just have fun with it. And what you'll realize is that second call, they won't be as red. They won't be nearly as red. They'll probably laugh a little bit, and they will respect you for being what? Resourceful.
Yep.
That's huge.
And for
That is
keeping
so
your
huge.
promises. Funny enough, what that line right there that you did, Daryl, and this is why I like the analytical types, because analyticals ask a lot of questions.
Yep.
I actually use that line when I talk to analytical types, because what happens is if you just start responding to their questions right away too much too soon, and you just think, oh, I'm doing an awesome job, I'm just answering everything, what's happening is they're constantly like just trying to think of objection. Like they're just in objection creation mode sometimes, and they don't even really want to object. They just keep on objecting. So sometimes it's better to actually pretend to not, even if I know the answer already, I will pretend to not know the answer so that I can tell them, you know what? That's a good question. I can acknowledge them. That's a really good question. Let me go find out. Let me go make certain. By the way, are you telling me that if you're able to solve that one issue, then you would feel comfortable moving forward? Because now I can walk them into a soft close.
Ooh.
Or they'll say, you know what? Actually, I also would need to know this. Oh, okay. So if we take care of these 3 items, then like that would, if I could figure that out and make that work, then this would make the whole thing work. Well, yeah, I don't see why not. But in their mind, they're thinking, but you can't figure that out. Bitch, I already know the answer.
Straight up.
Y'all some closers, bro. God, hey. So okay, guys. As we wrap up, because we got a minute left on the clock, I think we did a fantastic job going over the red seller. I think we got a few more that we need to go over, at least 3 more, and then knowing us, it's probably going to turn into a freaking sales masterclass each time.
Yeah.
Dang. I'm excited to go into those analytical types because I like the reds, right? The reds are fun for me. I like combating with the reds. To Marlon's point, the analytical types, it's kind of like puzzle pieces. You're putting together puzzle pieces. You're weaving together, right? Like a tapestry, a quilt, and that quilt is going to say one beautiful thing. It's going to say, you're going to sell me that house of yours. So I'm going to I'm done, guys. But guys, okay. So next week, which one are we going to cover?
This is analytical since we're talking already. We're talking about it already.
Ooh, analyticals. Okay, here's something I want to do. Something I would.
That is what personality type is that? I think we call that type C. Is it the type C?
Conscientious.
So
the think detail orientated.
Yep.
Yes. So what we're going to do is this, and we have to understand, right, that how these people communicate, it's different. How they want to be communicated to is different. And how we as closers need to formulate our approach and formulate how we progress conversations is going to have to be dynamic as well. What I think would also be helpful is this. With Red Sellers, guys, we kind of tied it in with last week with 816 Schooner Drive with that tenant that we had to evict. What I think would also be really helpful, I don't know about you guys, but I think it'd be kind of helpful to maybe share an anecdote or a story of a seller of that type that we've dealt with, so it's a little bit more tangible, it's a little bit more feelable, right? So let's say we had the red guy covered from last week. So I know about you guys, but we'll talk about this offline. Let's dig in. Let's find some green sellers, right? Some analytical sellers that we've dealt with in the past. How we've overcome them, how we've progressed, maybe where we even failed, because that's an interesting one. Awesome, guys.
Good ones.
Ooh, I know you, bro. They're probably on your Instagram reels already. Like, because you're just killing it on those calls. Guys, any last things before we wrap it up?
No, sir.
No, I was just super grateful for everyone that shows up and shows us love. Anyone that's posting it on their Instagram, tagging us, I'm always super grateful for that. And if you gain value, please do it again. Send it to your friends. Send the link. Tag us on Instagram. If you didn't get any value, don't do it. That's a fair game. All we ask for is to share this with your friends and help us grow. This is new, and we actually enjoy doing this. Like, we do this to provide as much value, and we take our time and make sure we're bringing you guys as much value as we can. So those are my last say.
Awesome. I love that. And actually, I want to follow up with one thing, because it keeps in line with what we're talking about today and maybe the next week or two. If you find that we're not communicating with you the way that you may need to be communicated to, I challenge you to do some self-awareness, figure out why is what Sam and Alejandro, Sam's up there preaching, Daryl's over here having a great time, Marlon's going in, he's going from Marlon Johnson and he's morphing into Mindset Marlon, but it's not landing with me. Do some self-awareness, find out why, and then tell us, hey, don't be like, Sam, you guys suck, you guys need to quit YouTube. Tell us, hey, it's not landing. This is what isn't clicking for me. And then what we're going to do, we're going to work on our closer skills. We're going to come back next week and see if we can fix that. I think that's a fair trade. Marlon, is that a fair trade?
That's a fair trade. And I'm going to add one more thing on top of this, right? Because I like giving people some exercises that are going to benefit them. If there's a topic that you want to see us discuss, if there's a topic that you're struggling with in your business, if there is any sort of issue going on, leave it in the comment section. Even if you're not here live, if you're watching this, I know a lot of people watch these videos on replay. I've been getting a lot of people that reach out to me. In fact, some people have texted me just saying thank you. So if you're watching this on replay and you've made it this far to the end, first off, shout out to you. You're the real MVP for watching all the way through. Also, leave a comment, because we all go through every single comment. I personally respond to every comment. I know these guys read their comments. I don't know if they respond to them as well. I know I respond to every single comment. So leave a comment on what you want to see us work on. Alejandro and Daryl are like, bro, come on. Yeah, like, And it's not a bot. It's not an assistant. It's not a VA. Like, this is us responding because we believe in community. So you're really talking to us. Like, when I respond to you, like Carlos, over the weekend, I saw you watch some videos I posted from 5 years ago. Thank you, Carlos. That was freaking awesome. It was meaningful to me. So leave a comment on what you want to see us discuss next, and we will bring it up in the next episode. I'm going to pass the mic to Daryl.
Yo, Daryl, take it home for us, bro.
Yo, if you guys have not already subscribed to Marlon's channel, you just heard this dude got videos from 10 years ago on there. Sam's channel, he has the Origin Story podcast every single, what day is that, Sam?
Every single Wednesday.
Every single Wednesday. Shout out to Alejandro, who drops the dopest videos on YouTube that you'll ever see. Subscribe to all their channels. Follow them on Instagram. It's in the description below. Follow me on Instagram. Subscribe to my channel. I'm about to drop 60 videos straight, baby. And like this video. Comment on these videos, like Marlon said. Comment what you want to learn from us. We'll see you next Tuesday, 5 o'clock Arizona time. You can Google it for all the other times. We out of here. Catch y'all next time. Peace.